Ready to call this meeting to order?
We say well.
One time, goodness. I know.
I guess, sir. Ready, John? Yeah, ready.
All right, let's call this meeting of the Sewer Authority Midcoastside for Monday, March 11th to order at 7 p.m. Could we have a roll call, please?
Director Slater Carter.
Present.
Director Penrose.
Here.
Director Clark. Here. Director Decker. Here. Director Rella.
Here.
Chair Dyke.
Here.
Could you folks turn on I see the Sewer Authority Midcoastside one is cameras off. PCT Live has a picture, but not the, it's like Sam's official one does not.
Upper right.
Level. I don't know. John?
No, all right, everything is going fine.
Well, while you're messing with that, I was just gonna just an administrative note. Director Ruddock, as you can see, is participating remotely pursuant to Government Code 54953F2 for just cause because she is ill. So anyway, we are operating under the AB 2449 rules for this evening, which are basically the same. But if we don't have audio and visual connectivity, we're supposed to stop. And so that's why we got to make sure we get that squared away.
Yeah, we do have the PCT Live.
Well, it's in the upper right-hand corner. It's not showing anything, and that's what says the Sewer Authority Midcoastside.
There we go. Now it shows. You fixed it.
Okay.
All right, Jeremy, are we legal?
You're legal. Carry on.
It's moving on. Do we have comment from members of the public for items not on the agenda? Anyone here? All right, moving on to the consent agenda. I have a comment on the minutes of February 26th. And
I also have a comment on the minutes. This is Director Ruddock.
yes, let's talk about those first. Let's pull that and discuss, or because then you're able to be incorporated in the motion. My issue is that I would like it to say that the SAM attorney said that at the end of the discussion of the Princeton pump station delay, that the general manager had the authority to manage this with the contractor. That's my issue about you, Director Ruddock.
Yes, so I just wanted to point out that the minutes say that this is under the minutes. So General Manager Prathabadi indicated that directive to put the particular item on the agenda relating to the Princeton pump station on hold for an amount of time, and I believe that directive came from the chair. So I think the minutes ought to spell out that the directive came from the chair.
That's fine. I was consulted and I said,
So we'll modify the sentence to say he was given a directive by the chair to put this item on the agenda.
Okay.
and then we will add an item at the end that says that the SAM council said that the general manager had the authority to tell the contractor that the project was on. Well, I don't think we have to spell out what you were directed to say, but that you had the authority to tell the contractor what the status of the project was. Because that is what he said.
That's what I said.
Yeah, so I have always authority to indicate whatever the board indicates to me to the contractor.
But
So-
that's not what Jeremy told you. He said, because the board did not take specific action, he said that you had the authority to take action.
Yeah, but that's not the point. The point is the board voted.
No.
No, let me
The point
finish,
is
please.
what he said in the minutes.
Let me finish, please. The board voted in the earlier meetings to place on hold the project for 2 weeks. So the board has to either remove the hold or extend the hold. That was my point, which I brought.
And you can put that in the minutes that you said that. However, our attorney said you had the authority to tell the contractor that the project needed to be put on further hold when at that meeting there was not a successful vote.
Yeah.
Correct? Is that what happened?
That's my recollection. Yeah, no, there's my opinion was that the general manager has inherent authority to manage the contracts he's required to manage.
Without funding?
No, that's what you had to do. You didn't have funding, so that's why you had the authority to tell the contractor to suspend service until you had funding.
Okay, I'll let Jeremy work out the language and we can bring it back.
Why don't we bring it back? Let's pull it and bring it back.
Perfect.
So does anyone have any comments or issues with the disbursements for March 11th?
Nope.
Right? Is there a motion to approve? Yep.
So move as amended.
Well, we're just voting on the disbursements. We're pulling the minutes.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
3B.
A second. Okay. I guess the motion was to approve 3B. With a second from Peter Decker, Director Decker. Can we have a roll call, please?
Director Slater Carden,
Yes.
Director Penrose,
Yes.
Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Decker,
Aye.
Director Radek,
Aye.
said aye.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Good there. All right. Moving on to regular business.
We didn't do items 3C or D.
I don't have any items.
Consent agenda.
Those are item 4.
No, I think you're looking at the wrong agenda, maybe.
There's only
We have only 3A and B. Consent agenda at 3A and B.
Item 4 is A, B, C, and D.
That's what I'm looking at the minutes. Sorry.
All right. Moving on to regular business. First item is receive and file report from Climate Adaptive Systems on desktop data analysis of flows and hydraulic performance of SAM's collection and treatment systems during winter storms of 2021 and 2022-23.
Thank you.
Director.
So there was a lot of discussion in the past on the winter storms of 2021, 22, and 2023. And SAM had experienced excess inflows and caused anxiety to SAM and its staff, and it was discussed in several board meetings, even a couple of meetings that was put forth by the public. And therefore, SAM board authorized Climate Adaptive Systems to perform a desktop analysis of flows and the hydraulic performance of SAM's collection and treatment systems during these winter storms. So the consultant spent a lot of time and captured all the data from SCADA, had conversations with our operators and made presentations to our operators, got feedback, made some corrections in the report wherever required. And finally, we presented it to the member agency engineers, and also the managers were invited for that presentation on March 1st. And based on whatever discussions were held, the draft report is in the packet. And we also have Mira, the consultant from Climate Adaptive Systems, out here. She'll do a short PowerPoint presentation and I'll be here to answer questions. Thank you. Mira, please. Come on.
Thank you.
Here,
I'll scoot it over here.
Some sort of share screen here. Can folks on the Zoom see the full screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Neha Chokshi, and I'm a principal at Climate Adaptive Systems. And I'm going to summarize some of the key findings of this study. The presentation is pretty long, so there are parts that I'm going to skip for today's meeting, but it's all included in the report. This is a map you're all familiar. The only point I want to take away from this map is the 3 agencies are color-coded, Montara in blue, Grenada in orange, and Half Moon Bay in green. And that's the color scheme you're going to see through the report. 2 analyses were done for this study. The first one was a long-term trends. I had 10 years worth of data that I had downloaded and analyzed. And second was more 5-minute data for the 3 very specific storms that the project was scoped for. So the first findings is with the long-term trends. These are the 3 colors that you see. Blue is Montara, orange is Grenada, and green is Half Moon Bay, and the gray is the Dole Sam influence. And what's hard to see by the observations there is a small increase in trend with the green line with Half Moon Bay. To make this understand easy, I compared this with a percentage graph. So this is where you see the total daily flows as a percentage of same plan. And you see the trends being more clearly identified in that. And you see the green line continuously increasing over time. Daily flows could vary very differently. For a sanitary system, dry weather versus wet weather is very different. So I looked at the same data, then separated out for dry weather days as compared to the wet weather days. So looked at dry weather flows. So took all the 10 years of data, but only for the months of June, July, August, and September, 4 months of summer months. And what this is showing you is the daily dry weather flow on average over the last 10 years. And you see that trend, and you see numbers with Half Moon Bay. There's a small decrease with with Grenada, and then the same plant influence remains the same. The fact that the same plant remains the same over the 10-year period gives the confidence that there's the increase as a percentage makes sense. The second piece I was looking at was wet weather events. Wet weather events are a little bit different because every storm is a different type of storm and could release different amount of rainfall and stormwater volume that could enter the system. So the first thing I did, I identified all the rainfall events over the 10-year period, and I used 2 days of inter-event, a dry day window. Essentially, there's 2 storms separated by 2 dry days. There were 2 separate events. And over the 10-year period, you had 171 rainfall events and a total rainfall of 31.7 inches on average, or 317 inches over a 10-year period. For each of these storms, I looked at what's the RDII, rainfall-derived inflow and infiltration. That's the water that can enter your sanitary sewer system through cracks in pipes, joints, leaks, unsealed manholes, or it could also be indirect or direct connections to stormwater pipes. So it could be any of those. This graph shows you just monitoring at same plant. That's the dark red black line. And the brown area highlighted shows the dry weather component. That's your average sanitary flow you would see if there was no rain. And then the blue area highlighted shows you RDII. And the reason I'm showing you this graph is I estimated that RDII volume, and you'll see it in 1 minute. This is the total flow, total wet weather flow for each of the 171 events. And in the next slide, I plotted the RDII volume for every single event for the 3 agencies as a percentage of same plan. And what you see with the trend is consistent with you were seeing before. There's a slow increase in the green dots, the green trend. And that's the flows with Half Moon Bay. There seems to be a trend that's showing that there's an increase in RDII. I wanted to corroborate this with an independent source. So I went to the CWITS database, the California's water quality database. It's the state water board maintaining this, and downloaded what's called as the SSO reports for the same period and plotted that just to see if increase in RDII would lead to an increase in SSOs. And I was seeing the same collaboration. That agency that Half Moon Bay, which was seeing an increase in RDII, had generally a higher amount of spills over that same time period.
That's not
So I'm going to pause here. See if you want to take questions now or wait till the end. Because I know I went really fast.
My preference is to wait to the end.
Okay. So there are 3 storms that I looked very closely into: the October 23rd, 2021, the December 23rd, 2021, and the December 31st, 2022 storm, the New Year Eve storm that is one of the big ones. And this is the 10 years of data. And on the top, you see the rainfall, and you see the 3 storms highlighted. You can just see how big they were. The last time you had big storms was 2014. And then there was a drought, and then you have these 3 storms that happened. For the benefit of today's conversation, I'm only going to focus on the first storm, but the conclusions are pretty much the same, and we'll skip the 2 storms for now. And then if there are questions, we can come back to it. So the October 2021 storm, it was a 6-day storm in total. rained continuously for 6 days. The bulk of the storm happened on October 24th, 2021. And it was approximately a 10 to 25 year return period. And what that means is that storm like this has a likelihood of happening once every 10 to 25 years. It varied. There was a little bit of spatial variability, so I ranged it. So a pretty big, intense storm. And you see the rain dots that shows the 3 rain gauges and the total rainfall across them. So what I then started looking at is some of the pump station data and the wet well data very closely. And what you'll see here, top is the rainfall. The bottom, you'll see the teal line is the Valamar pump station. The purple line is the Montara pump station. And the sum of those two together added up is the total flows from Montara Water Sanitary District. And what I was looking for here is did the pumps operate? Did they ramp up on time as more rainfall driven inflows and infiltration came into the system? And they did. What I also noticed is that Valamar had a very fast increase, whereas Montara had a slightly slow increase. And that makes sense because the Montara pump station, the wet well is gravity connected with the Montara tank, so it provides additional storage. So then I wanted to check how did the tank storage get utilized? Looking through this, the storage, was utilized fully. It was gravity connected, so the pump operations were very well maintained to send the flows at the same time hold back when needed. The next system is the Granada system, and here there are multiple lines. The top line shows the rainfall in blue. In the bottom, the bottommost line in dark brown shows the San Pablo pump station. The gray shows Princeton. The dark orange shows Granada pump station, and then the top line that is in orange shows Portola. The calculation for Granada's flow essentially flows from Portola plus San Pablo subtracted Montara, and then a few additional small flows added in. Looking for the same thing, did the pump stations operate correctly? Did they turn on as more flows came in? They did. Again, you see Princeton and San Pablo had a slightly faster rise as compared to Portola, and that explains because Portola has the wet weather management facility under the Burnham Strip that allows for storage of water. Now here it seems like the facility under the Burnham Strip did really well. It was able to hold back the flows for a pretty long time. The storage was fully utilized. Even though it shows that the overflow elevation at the RV park was slightly above, there were no reported SSOs. So it did pretty well in terms of maximizing the storage that was available and holding back flows.
What are the 2 lines that you?
So the colored lines is the total flows at the Portola pump station, and the black dotted line is the wet well at Portola. And because the wet well is connected to the storage, and it's by gravity, it gives you a good indicator of how well the storage is utilized. So I'm deducing it based on the data that's available. And then the last graph is showing you the flows from the 3 agencies coming compared to the SAM plant and what you see up there. And I want to focus on, again, the blue line is Montara, the orange line is Granada, the green line is Half Moon Bay, and then the gray line at the bottom is this total SAM plant influent. There are 2 windows that I want to talk about, and that's what the table is showing. The first one is on October 21st, when the first storm hit, and it's a very small peak, and you just see a little bit of response. And then the second one is on October 24th, when you have the bigger storm. Percentage of peak flow as a percentage of the SAM plant, if you use that metric, starts increasing for Half Moon Bay. And I saw that consistently across the other 2 storms that I looked at, that when you have more rain, more antecedent conditions, and then you get a peak of the storm, you're starting to see a higher percentage of peak flows from Half Moon Bay compared to the other 2 agencies. And that was a question I still fully wasn't sure, but as I started looking at it closely, it was clear. So this is the December 2023 storm. Same observations for the benefit of time. And it's okay if I skip through it for now. I want to get to conclusions and then we can look at these if there is an interest.
Everybody okay with skipping ahead?
Please.
Yeah.
It's already there in the back.
Yeah, it's all in the report. And I say you see the same percent. December 31, 2022 storm was a 26-day storm. So you see that antecedent moisture driving RDII, driving a higher flow from Half Moon Bay makes sense. And when looking at this, it kind of makes sense. The system from Half Moon Bay is closer to the plant. So just the proximity of it when there is more RDIA coming in, they're coming in at a plant at a faster rate. So that's what the data is indicating. As the long-term trends are indicating, there is generally a higher RDIA percentage-wise from Half Moon Bay. So those were just some of the observations. So in terms of other conclusions, again, this is based on data. There is a significant increase in RDII from City of Half Moon Bay over the last 10 years. Montana, Valamar, Princeton, San Pablo, and Portola, some of the major pump stations along the IPS, they operated correctly during the 3 storms that I looked at. The 2 storage facilities, the Walker Tank and the Wet Weather Management Facility, they were both utilized really well to reduce peak flows from the 2 agencies along the IPS. The 2 additional conclusions were flows from City of Half Moon Bay are conveyed to the plant at a much faster rate, primarily due to the fact that they are so much closer to the plant and absence of any storage to manage peak flows. The other 2 agencies have a storage facility closer to them, so it allows some peak shaving, right, that wasn't available here. And this was the percentage of peak flows from Half Moon Bay entering the plant increased more for storms where there was more antecedent rainfall. It's sort of indicating that there is an RDII issue, which is probably also why corroborated with the SSO reports where I saw a higher amount of SSOs in Half Moon Bay compared for that period. In terms of recommendations, identifying and reducing RDII sources are one. The top one I would say is to do more monitoring. There are portions of the system that you may want to monitor closely. And then identify, you may not have RDII everywhere. There might be some small zones, and just, monitoring can help you identify and reduce basically optimize your budget dollars to just reduce RDII sources from the inflows that direct or cross connections to stormwater pipes or stormwater inflows. And infiltration could be coming from aging pipes, joints, manholes. And then the second recommendations is managing peak flows from Half Moon Bay. Seems like there's a control on one side of IPS and not on other. And this is strictly just looking at the system and the data. You can see the 2 storage facilities allowing that peak shaving, but you don't see it on the Half Moon Bay side of the system. So considering distributed or a single storage solution. So those are some of the key recommendations. I don't have more here, but I'm happy to go back to any previous slides if you want.
Thank you very much. Very interesting report. Questions?
There are 2 pipes. There are 2 entrances of the flow into the plant. One of the entrances is the IPS. The other one is the pipe that comes from Half Moon Bay.
Right.
I believe the pipe from Half Moon Bay goes through the swamp and then goes Ulysses Creek. The other one is located under the driveway. I didn't see in your report a suggestion that perhaps we should install flow meters to find out
That was
exactly
the last.
how much flow is going through those pipes.
Right. So the recommendation was not specific to that pipe, but the first recommendation was consider flow monitoring of the system.
Right.
And certainly, if that's a big data gap, then you're absolutely right.
It certainly would be way more accurate than the system we're using now. But is that expensive to put flow meters in those pipes?
I mean, flow meters, I don't have today's costs. I've done flow monitoring or supported flow monitoring crews in my career. They're $5,000 to $10,000 a pop, right? And you can have companies install it for 1 or 2 wet seasons to sort of collect temporary data for just wet season only, and that might be cheaper. So I don't know the current costs, but it's certainly a better investment in terms of prioritizing your work.
Yeah, I believe, if I could, I believe Half Moon Bay is already considering the possibility of putting flow meters. They're working on that, but they're having certain telemetry issues, and that's why we're not able to capture flow meter from all the locations. But they are working towards putting flow meter.
I have a clarifying question. So right now, the input from Half Moon Bay is determined by the input to the plant subtracted with minus the
That's what's also indicated in your report.
Right. I just wanted to make sure that I had that right.
And one thing when I met with the operators, I checked was the meter calibration, and I was told They are calibrated regularly, and an external party, an external contractor does the calibration. So those two things gave me enough confidence. When I looked through the data looked very clean. There were no missing data, gaps, like blips that would raise questions. So generally the data quality was very high.
Other questions, Catherine?
Yeah, I've got a couple. I was listening to an interesting I&I show one day, podcast, and the speaker mentioned can be significant inflow from the vents in a roof. That during heavy storms, the water goes down the roof vent and then into the sewer. And the recommendation was to put taps on the roof vents so that the water got shed onto the roof and not down to the pipe. Have you heard of that as a problem, or is that, I know running your gutters into your drain pipes is a very bad thing.
Right.
And some years ago, decades ago actually, did a smoke test to see if that was happening, and we actually found a few houses where that had happened.
So I've definitely heard of smoke test as a means of finding a very high amount of inflow sources. What I've also seen is when newer developments are set up, sometimes the sanitary pipes go in first and the storm system goes in later, the storm drainage system. So either it's a contractor or a homeowner, just in the rush, they may just temporarily connect the storm drainage to the sanitary pipe, and then it gets left behind. It's sort of like forgotten. And so newer developments could have that. Sometimes even older developments just never got replaced. So that's another source of inflow. Inflow should be relatively easier to fix because you're looking for these big connections to remove the source. Infiltration is harder because then you have to go look for cracks in pipes and joints and such.
It's my dim recollection from some years ago that there were actually two pipes that come into the sand plant from Half Moon Bay. One goes under the creek and another one comes in closer to the plant.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious about that, if you considered both pipes or maybe one of the pipes has gone away.
Data was not available for the pipe that's coming under the swamp. Data was only available for the pumps that were pumping to IPS to the plant and then sand plant. So there was a subtraction approach used. That is one of the discussion items, and what Christian mentioned is to add a flow meter, or Half Moon Bay is considering adding a flow meter on that pipe. And I think it's strongly advisable to add a flow meter there.
Okay, so you're talking about two flow meters on the pipes, on two pipes from Half Moon Bay.
Yes,
Yeah.
which seems like something you'd be happy to do to monitor.
It makes total sense.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah. So I guess, I don't think this is something we're going to solve tonight, but it does seem as if that's.
I have a couple comments I'd like to make.
Go ahead.
And you've actually made a couple of them yourselves, but the study is constrained because of the data coming from the pressurized meters only. It doesn't take into account the IPS gravity line or the plant assigned to Half Moon Bay. It shows.
I'm sorry, the plant assigned. Oh, okay, got it. Sorry, I was just trying to follow what you were saying.
Yeah, it's okay. The conclusions, recommendations are based on a desktop study that's made several assumptions, putting the blame on Half Moon Bay. We all can see that. To really understand what's happening, our recommendation is wet weather flow analysis using portable meters, not necessarily buying meters, but having them portable meters provided instead of relying on the desktop work and assumptions. There was a mention of on table 9, page 41, showing Half Moon Bay at 10.96 MGDs, assuming that all the Pillar-Cetus Creek floodwaters had been drained, which based on evidence was not the case. again, assigns any INI in the gravity portion of the IPS and the plant itself all to Half Moon Bay. So there are things that we'd like to have cleared up, obviously, and I think a study with portable meters makes total sense.
So that would replace the existing meters with a new set of portable meters, and then for the first time, add meters for the Half Moon Bay input?
Use portable meters everywhere.
Right. So you would add meters, which you don't have.
We don't have meters.
Right.
We would need meters so that we can get away from this subtraction thing. That's been,
Sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds
Sounds
good.
a good plan.
It seems like everybody should have meters.
yeah.
I'm surprised you don't have meters.
Well, got a lot of other things.
Right.
I have one more question.
Portable sort of suggests temporary,
Yeah.
but I think that we've seen, you have to take a 10-year look at least at the situation because of the difference in the rainfall in different locations in different storms. So, I don't think a 1-year study
I think this is really
is going to.
looking at three storms.
Right.
Looking at a fourth storm, and if the fourth storm shows that things are very different in that storm, then you do it another year.
Yeah.
You do it another year. You do it as long as you need to in order to get the information that you want, which is the true amount of influx.
I have a question and then
Okay.
Catherine.
Matthew, I agree with you. I think the time period is more important than random storm events. So
But they found consistent results from the 3 storm events they studied. So that's
Purely from a
there
financial point of view.
are others.
How much more expensive is a
Yeah.
permanent meter versus a temporary one?
Well,
Yeah.
Keisha could be looking into that.
I wanted to ask a question. I remember way back when, and I've heard discussion of it recently, that Half Moon Bay had done its own flow study, but it has never been made public. And I'm curious as to how that compares with this one and if it will be made public.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I can answer that. Yes, we're currently undertaking our own hydraulic analysis on the system. But I think Deborah's point is that, we need to evaluate wet weather impacts from storms because that's where these numbers are coming from. You're doing a desktop analysis on a few storms. And, we think the portable meters ought to be on the IPS, the gravity part that's, south of El Granada. It should be at the plant. It should be on the pipes coming from Half Moon Bay. But, and also Montera and Granada. We need, just assuming because you deduct, you assign Half Moon Bay what is deducted from the other 2 agencies, that's really scientific. And that's why, we don't think that that's enough. So we need real, data.
I had heard this study was started around 2017, 2018, 16, I don't know, somewhere in that. And that it was going to be made public. And I believe there were even questions asked about it recently. And I'm just, if you guys don't know about it,
I certainly don't.
I know about it. And we've discussed it before, and the city staff is committed to making it, publicly available. I don't have an immediate update as to a specific date when, but we're committed to that. We don't need you to, question our credibility on our study. We've made a commitment and we're going to honor it. So,
So there's a study we haven't seen, and there are meters on our systems, but not on Half Moon Bay's, and you want different meters on all of them, which makes sense. So let's do it.
one of the others we need a meter on is the Frenchman's Creek, or not the creek, but the that development, because it's been there 40 years.
It's already there. Which one of Frenchman's Creek?
There is one on Frenchman's Creek.
We calibrated regularly. Yes.
That wasn't included in this? It's included in that.
Yeah.
All right, I think we should
Okay.
let the public ask some questions unless there's further items right now.
I see some hands up.
I do too. Greg, would you? Greg? Yes, there we go.
I'm sorry. Just a couple of points of information before I get to a question. I talked to John Dowdy about this back in early 2022 because the December 13th, 2021 storm to me showed the problem. John and I had a bunch of emails we traded. On April 30th, 2022, he wrote me an official Half Moon Bay letter citing a report done by, I think her name is Vivian Housen, with a bunch of conclusions. And that's a report that I asked to see the modeling behind because it said that Half Moon Bay couldn't contribute more than about 7 MGD. I've never been able to get the model behind that and have peer review done. Secondly, I think there are 3 pipes from Half Moon Bay because I had a tour with Tony from Collections of the plant. Again, this goes back a few years, so I'll let that Sam staff comment, but I thought there were 3 inflows from Half Moon Bay. There is 1 meter already installed on the pipe that comes in on the access road, but it's been turned off, so I don't know why. And when I met with John back in March or so of 2022, he said Half Moon Bay had meters on order from Germany, but supply chain issues were delaying things, and he expected to have them in about 3 months. So I don't know what's happened after that. My question is about this gravity section of the IPS. Can somebody reprise what the inflows that are in the gravity section are and that differ from the Portola pump, and which of those is a mystery, an unmeasured addition?
Or
The gravity section of the IPS, so one thing that runs into the gravity section of IPS would be anything from Rocket Farms, depending on what they're doing, but we get meter readings from them every month in Frenchman's Creek. The San Pablo feeds in, but that's where it's still sort of the pressurized section of the IPS. So that's not on the gravity section of the IPS.
Yeah, that's clearly indicated in the report from junction structure 2. You have a dark line in the report which says gravity pipeline, so that's the gravity line coming in.
so there's a meter at the beginning of the gravity section? Is that what you're saying?
No, there's a meter only at Frenchman's Creek.
Oh, there is one at Frenchman's Creek.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
one at Frenchman's Creek.
And then Rocket Farms has a meter.
Yes.
And gives us the data.
Yes. So we have flow meter data from Rocket Farms, and we have flow meter managed by Sam at Frenchman's Creek.
Got it.
Both are on the gravity line.
All right. Anything further, Greg? Oh, Director Reddick.
No, so that's, I guess, the answer to the question. So it's from junction structure number 2 to junction structure number 3 that we worry about I&I on the IPS not being measured. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's no flow meter. There is a flow meter after junction structure 2 at Frenchman's Creek. So it's beyond the Frenchman's Creek is what we're talking about.
But what connects
Yes.
into that? What connects into that?
The flow meter is just the flows coming from Frenchman's Creek into the gravity.
It's a gravity section.
That's all that flow meter picks up.
Oh, I see. And so,
That community that
and the closest upstream one is at Portola?
Well, there's one at San Pablo.
Oh, okay.
Prior to San Pablo, Portola would be the next.
But so it's San Pablo plus Rocket Farms plus Frenchman Creek is what
Yeah,
you
San
have to
Pablo goes
measure.
into the IPS,
Got it.
and we have flow meter San Pablo too.
Thank you. Gregory,
So the I&I, just to finish, the I&I then would have to come in after the Rocket Farms and Frenchman's Creek meter and before it joined at junction structure number 3. So why don't we just put a meter at junction structure number 3?
That's what Half Moon Bay is working on, putting these flow meters at different places.
But
Yeah.
that junction structure number is that just the IPS or is that a Half Moon Bay? I'm trying to get a meter at the end of the IPS. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, that's the IPS. That's not Half Moon Bay, right?
It's
Yes, that's the end of the IPS. That's not Half Moon Bay.
I'm trying to see where which junction structure.
Junction structure number 3 is right before it comes into the plant, right? According to this chart,
28 of PDF.
Which 20?
Sorry,
27.
27 of PDF. So you assume this is without map, but I'm still looking at it. Sure.
Well, my point is, it would seem that the installation of 1 meter at whatever the termination of the gravity flow of the IPS is enough to find out if there's any significant I not being measured per Deborah Ruddock's point.
yeah. Is it expensive to add a flow meter?
Depends what type of flow meter.
It always depends.
It's
To put in something that you would consider reasonably capable of providing the data that would be useful.
It's,
You know,
the meter itself is for depending like $20,000,
Okay.
and then depending on the vault and everything else that you're going to have to do on the estimation, on the construction costs, and telemetry, and it goes up rapidly.
$50,000?
I'm not even going to venture it.
Okay, got it. Thanks. All right, Carlisle.
Thank you. This is a question for the person who gave the report, and I didn't catch your name. Sorry about that. On the with the prevalence of atmospheric river storms that we're having pretty frequently over the last decade, are you suggesting that permanent meters in Half Moon Bay for wet weather impacts should be installed?
I think there's 2 different topics in my mind. Atmospheric rivers and climate change bringing extreme storms is something that's going to stay. And there's a completely different operational and R&R strategies needed for that. The recommendation for flow meters is more temporary, at least in my opinion. And it is to really just understand the flows coming from the 3 agencies to sort of support the conclusions that this report had.
I think. Oh, sorry. I thought they do the billing of the total flow to the plant and divvy it up based on the flows. And at this point, it sounds like they read them off of the meters in the north and then just subtract out the difference. So wouldn't they want to have their own flow meters to read and calibrate?
Yeah, you're absolutely right that more flow meters are needed for that purposes. But what I'm saying is atmospheric rivers and climate change driven more atmospheric rivers is a different phenomenon, and flow meters aren't really going to help address the issues that they will bring.
Okay. I think it does during wet weather, but I could be wrong. I don't know that much. And then secondly, did you suggest that one of the remediations would be wet weather storage for Half Moon Bay, since there's already some up in the north?
Yes. If I look at system operations, there's the storage up in Grenada and Montara is doing a really good job of shaving peak, but you don't see that impact from Half Moon Bay, partly because Half Moon Bay is so much closer to the plant.
And there's no meter to determine if they need to cut off their flow for big storm events, right? Okay, that's all. That was my question. One other thing on your last slide, or second to the last slide, there were some gray bars on it. I wondered why you had the gray bars in the, I think it was page 36.
I think I was just trying to highlight that window just because it's hard to look at the graph. So it's just trying to bring readers' attention on those gray bars.
Okay. Thanks.
Any further questions from the board? I have one more question. What do you recommend for next steps, if any, for Sam?
I think flow monitoring, especially on the two pipes, the gravity section of IPS, as you discussed, and the section of pipe that's coming from Half Moon Bay.
Or two pipes?
For two pipes. And I would recommend temporary monitoring. There are flow monitoring outfits that do it very fast and efficient. And I've used wireless sensor, all the telecommunications wireless, it's fast. Use that to confirm the numbers you have. If those numbers match what you have exactly, you have your answers. You don't need to keep doing more monitoring. So that would be my recommendation, is 1 or 2 wet season of data and confirm your equations to make sure you have those right. And once you have those, then looking for more monitoring to then identify the INI sources.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Very interesting report. Yes.
For staff, how old is the IPS between junction structure 2 and junction structure 3? And would you expect it to be leaking INI significantly?
I believe before 2015, it was 2013 that we did a smoke test on those gravity lines way back. For SRT had done the smoke test on the gravity lines. After Frenchman's Creek, I don't have the results in front of me, but I think we did the gravity test, a smoke test quite some time back.
And
it could be repeated.
I would suggest maybe that we take a look at that to see.
Yeah, because the gravity line, we can do a smoke test. Sure.
Yeah.
And that's a SAM facility.
It is.
Piece of equipment, right? It's Sam's responsibility to maintain it.
Yes.
So forth. Yes.
You could consider that.
Okay.
We'll explore and let's see, I can bring it back to the board if it's beyond authorization.
Well, very interesting. Thank you so much for a great report. A really thought-provoking and interesting report. So we appreciate all your hard work. Thank you so much. Thank you for your questions. Sid, your hand is still up. Are you? Me. Sid.
No.
All right. Anything else on this item? Moving on to item B, adopt resolution adopting and conforming the sewer authority mid-year budget adjustment fiscal year 2023-24 for the member agency authorizing resolutions, which were attached, but do not authorize the entire amount of the proposed budget resolution. So then we have.
Yeah, that's the background to that. The board authorized the general manager to submit a media budget adjustment on January 22nd to the member agency. So the media budget adjustment involved 2 projects. One was the Princeton Pump Station rehabilitation, and the other was the Montara Sports Main. You want me to pause?
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. So the media budget adjustment involved 2 projects, Princeton Pump Station rehabilitation project and the Montara Force Main, the design of the Montara Force Main. So this was submitted to the member agencies, and the member agencies, Montara Water and Sanitary District adopted the resolution at their meeting on February 1st for the complete budget. DCST adopted the resolution at their meeting on February 15th, again for the complete budget. The city first adopted a resolution at their council meeting on February 6th, approving the complete budget subject to a stipulation, approval of a stipulation to pay under protest, while reserving its rights for a final resolution in the ongoing court action. Subsequently, on March 5th, recently last week, the city repealed their earlier resolution and then approved under protest only funding for the Princeton Pump Station rehabilitation project, which is a partial approval of the media budget adjustment, which was submitted to the city in the amount of $823,000, 849. That would fund only for the Princeton Pump Station. The city did not approve the balance of the share of the budget amendment of $481,606, which is for the Montara Force Main design, while the other 2 member agencies have approved this budget amendment. So the staff report is in your packet, and staff has recommended 2 options for the board to choose. One is for a total approval of the budget, and if the board is unable to approve the entire proposed amended budget, to instead approve that portion of the amended budget which is agreed upon by all the three member agencies, so that work can go on with the Princeton Pump Station in the amount of $1,339,592. Staff is here to answer any questions.
I think it is very clear that the stipulation by the city of Half Moon Bay that has so graciously accepted at least to go ahead with the Princeton Pump Station, for which we're grateful, requires a motion to say that. And that motion would read, motion to approve the amended budget agreed in the.
You're making a motion.
I'm making a motion now. Motion to approve the amended budget agreed in the amount of 1.339592. The attachment A to SEM resolution 012024, titled fiscal year 2023 to 2024, mid-year budget adjustment calculation shall be revised to delete section B, the cost for the Montana force main design, and the total mid-year budget adjustment shall be revised to reflect the total sum of $1,339,592.
I guess, and that would be that we also include a breakdown of the cost of that 13.
It's here.
1399. I'm sorry.
It's in the attachment.
It's attached in the attachment.
Where?
No, it's not in the attachment.
I don't see it.
So the complete amount. So what Director Penrose is saying is only for the Penrose, for the Princeton Pump Station.
Pump station,
Yeah,
yes.
so the breakdown would be this. For Half Moon Bay, it would be 823,849.
Yes.
For GCSD, it would be 255,192. For Montana Water and Sanitary District, it would be 260,551. So that is the percentages which is agreed upon in the general budget. 61.5% for Half Moon Bay. GCSD is 19.05%. For Montana, it is 19.4. MWST is 19.45%. So that sums up to 1,339,592.
So are you
Let me
going
just
to amend your
Let me just amend it by saying, let the attachment reflect these numbers that were just mentioned.
Those numbers aren't in the attachment. Those numbers.
Let the attachment that will be in the motion reflect the thing that we just said.
So we could attach this to the resolution and say this is the member agency. Now there's a slight modification of the resolution as suggested by our general counsel, where it reads, as a result, the board of directors of the sewer authority Midcoastside approves and adopts a general budget amendment for fiscal year 23-24 as presented on March 11, 2024, and approved by the board on such date as this was added, as to the Princeton Pump Station project with the city paying under protest.
Yes.
This is added in the resolution. This is what was recommended by general counsel.
Great.
So this will be the final resolution with an attachment of the calculation for the amounts to be paid by all the member agencies.
Could we have the entire motion written out?
I can put it up on the screen. Would that be helpful?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a
You
$100.
need to give me access. Petition.
Yes, you have control.
Okay. Everybody see it?
You make it big.
I will try. Let's see here.
The one in red is the one which has been added to the resolution.
I'd like to make an addition to it too.
I can make it bigger.
Well, we also want to add the amounts in there.
No, the amounts are going to be added to the
Attachment,
attachment, which is in the body of the
resolution.
resolution.
But I'd like to add.
Wait, where is it?
In
I'm sorry.
addition to, it's in the attachment, so it's not on that screen.
But it isn't, I don't see any reference in this motion to the attachment.
I don't like this motion that is on the board. I like my motion better. It's simpler
Yes,
and it reflects exactly what we want.
so let's read yours slowly so somebody can put it up there. And I have an addition I want as well.
Motion to approve the amended budget agreed in the amount of 1.339592. The attachment A, which will be revised, as we just discussed, to SAM Resolution 01-2024, titled Fiscal Year 2023-24, Mid-Year Budget Adjustment Calculation, shall be revised to delete Section B, the cost for the Montana Force Main design, and the total mid-year budget adjustment shall be revised to reflect the total sum of 1.339592. I think this is simple, this is straightforward, and it should be easily enough to approve that motion.
I'll second that motion.
I'd like to make one addition. In addition to Half Moon Bay voting under protest, I'd like it to be added that Montera and Granada have each voted to support the Sam Montera Force Main.
So that's not voting under protest. Is not.
That's not part of the motion.
Yeah.
I think Jeremy was
Let
going
me
to
clear right
ask.
back. Sorry.
If you want to add that, we can say that you voted no on the last motion that was put.
I would like this motion to pass.
No, we don't want that. Budget amendments require unanimous votes, so let's not vote no if you can help it.
And not only that, Half Moon Bay City Council only approved for the Portola pump station.
Princeton Pump Stations.
And that's what my motion.
That's what his motion clearly says.
We like your motion.
All right. Is there a second for Peter's motion?
I did already.
Okay, great. Any further discussion on the motion?
I think it's a shame that we have to delete section B. The city has not approved the funding for the Princeton Pump Station for several months and now changed their mind. And this work is also on the IPS. It's also required by the consent decree. And is there any chance that the city can support doing everything that needs to be done now? Or do we have to go through another 6 or 8 or 10 months waiting?
We're paying under protest for Portola Pump Station. And the reason was that was the urgent item in terms of safety and calendar and schedule. We're about to enter, budget discussions. And I think at that time, Half Moon Bay will probably, approve under protest for Montera Force Main too. But, we didn't consider that in our last meeting because Portola Pump Station was the issue and that was the urgent thing. So Montera will come back. Montera Force Main will come back to the city as part of the general budget process.
I have a
coming right up.
Keisha, is there an urgency in terms of deadline in the federal agreement that we approve, that we are committed to for the Sam Montera Force Main? Is there a calendar for that, and is it urgent?
Yes, of course it's urgent because as per the ERF consent decree, we are required to complete the design of the force main by December 31st, 2024. We're already late because it takes almost a year for us to complete the documents with all the environmental and design and all those things involved. So we are already running late. The sooner we do that, it will be better. Otherwise, we'll be way off.
But that's not possible.
If that breaks, is there a hazard to the beaches and the ocean from runoff?
Yes, we have seen that in the past.
So we saw the 4 million gallon first or initial spill that caused this problem up there did run into the ocean.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a timeline, we have a safety issue, and we've got an agreement. I think that that's a fairly legitimate reason for us to move this forward, and I know my board agrees with me.
Director Penrose.
Yes, I'd like to say that the urgency can be met by Montera putting up the money until the court case is solved or until our council has a chance to consider it in our budget. At the current time, our council has not discussed paying for the Montera Force Main. If and when we do, and we should, it will be paid under protest because of the court case. The the fact that Montera and El Granada were unwilling to see that the Princeton pump station was paid for at our last meeting because they did not consider the safety of the operators who had to work there in very unsanitary and very scary situation important enough. So, or for whatever reason, I'm assuming that. It's the only thing I can assume. So,
We voted to fund it. We voted long ago to fund it. So
no, you did not vote at the last meeting to fund it.
Yes, we did.
yes, we
No.
did. Well,
Didn't rescind our previous votes.
we were already on record as voting as being willing to fund it. All right. Jeremy, you have a comment? And then
I did. Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. So just one thing to observe is that there is an item 4D that deals with the Montero Force Main. And the reason we put it on there was because there is a provision in the JPA agreement that allows the full board outside of the budget process, if unanimous, to approve a contract, which is not otherwise provided for in the budget. So one thing the board could do if the city needs to still discuss internally on this is the board could table 4D and then bring it back at the next board meeting, perhaps. I'm just brainstorming about how to move forward with Montera as well. But I think we have a resolution if the current motion passes to move forward on the Princeton pump station. But we certainly don't want to forget about the Montero Force Main, and that is something, if it were to be approved in short order, that would be a good thing for all concerned.
It will be coming back to the Half Moon Bay City Council. As I said, our focus ended up being on Portola Pump Station because of the safety issues and the urgency. So,
all right. I think we've really discussed this.
I'd like to remind everyone that we're under a very tight time frame on the force main as well, and we're talking about funding only the design at this time, not the construction. So in order to keep the process moving and have any chance of meeting our deadline dates, I think we need to do this.
It has to go to our city council. We can't make a decision without discussing it with the council.
And that's the next agenda item. And this agenda item, for which we have a motion, is on the table. And I'd like to call the question. I'd like to have a vote, please.
Director Sredakada,
Yes.
Director Penrose,
Yes.
Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Decker,
Aye.
Director Roddick,
aye.
Chair Dye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Now is the time to enter into any further discussion on the question of the Montero Force Main. I would recommend that, because it is clear that the SAM board members from Half Moon Bay cannot support this at this time without the backing of their city council, that we table this to a later meeting.
Can we go to 4C?
Yeah, we skipped 4C.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Which I'm not even, to me, I'm not 100% sure we even need 4C, but since on the agenda, there's nothing wrong with having the board kind of just direct general manager, which he wants that direction. So,
This
so it should be,
spelled out last time, the general manager has the authority to direct the contractor here. However, because at a previous meeting, we did officially put a hold on this project, I think it's appropriate here to remove the hold and get work started again. Hopefully our contractor will be willing to come back and get work started.
I move that we authorize the general manager to remove the hold.
I'll second.
Great. Any further discussion? All right, can we have a roll call, please?
Director Sredakada,
Yes.
Director Penrose,
Yes.
Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Decker,
Yes.
Director Roddick,
Aye.
Chair Dye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great. Yay.
I just want to say I appreciate Director Roddick's mention that the city council would look at this again. And I also appreciate the fact that we have come this far. I hope we can take the next steps.
I agree. Thank you very much. And thank you to all the agencies for providing the funding to get the Princeton pump station project moving again, which is partly underway, and it's great to have it moving forward. Item D, authorize general manager to enter into contract for completing the design of the Princeton Force Main. I would recommend that we table this for a future meeting, but if people would like to have further discussions.
I concur with tabling it for a separate meeting. I think it's important that Half Moon Bay be able to get this information in a complete manner, unlike the staff report for item 4A that they might actually talk about ERF. And they might actually talk about the history of this a little bit so that all of your board members are fully informed.
Okay. Any other comments? Does someone want to make a motion on item D?
I move that we table item 4D.
Second.
Yeah, before we go for tabling, I just want to mention that as indicated in the staff report, with the consultation of general counsel, it is possible to approve this contract to the consultant without having to amend the general budget. So we can move forward, we can start the work on the design because the design process is going to take that many number of months before the agencies can decide on it. So this
I
is a
personally am not willing to vote for something that there's not the money to do. That seems to me very wildly irresponsible to vote to support a project that there isn't the money to complete.
Okay, that's a suggestion so that we could comply with we might be able to comply with the ERF consent decree, but then in this case, then we'll be forced to probably inform.
Okay, you'll have to inform them of the situation.
We also have to comply with the governing document for this agency, which doesn't say that you can spend money you haven't authorized.
Well, you'd be authorizing it. Just to be clear, you would be. I mean, it winds up being an off-budget action, which then Sam would then invoice the member agencies for. You can do it. It is not the way that you've typically done it. And
well, responsible.
That's certainly the more traditional route would be doing a budget amendment.
Our council, quoting from the JPA, tells us that you can't do this. It has to be part of an approved budget. You can't approve money that's not in a budget already. You can do budget amendments, but then you have to do that first and put it into the budget. So our board can't support this.
And we can't approve it tonight in any case, so.
Right, well, I have one comment, and Jeremy, I am starting to get more than a little ticked off at the advice you're giving. These small amendments to the JPA and change in processes are changing our JPA in non-public and non-reflective manner. We have a JPA, it has worked, it still works, and I find that we need to adhere to our JPA rather than trying to do what other governments tend to do, which is slip and slide on what their basic mission and governance is. We have our governance, it's written down, it's been predictable, it's worked, and changing these things just because you can is amending the JPA, and I am going to ask you to not do that. Thank you.
Can I respond?
Please.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the comment. No amending. I don't have the authority to amend anything. So I will send the board, if it would be helpful, the language I'm relying on in the JPA agreement. There's nothing new I'm adding. There's no, there is a way that the board has traditionally done things, but that's not because the JPA doesn't allow it to do it differently. So I feel extremely confident that the board can approve by a unanimous vote contracts that are not in the budget. It's also done on other JPAs, but it's allowed under your JPA agreement. Whether you choose to do it that way, well, that's up to you. And so I try very hard to give you options and flexibility to be able to operate. And it's up to you how you, and of course, different lawyers can disagree on things. And so if the esteemed Mr. Parkin has a different view, well, that's up to him. But that's my legal opinion, and I'm sticking to it.
Okay, let me make it clear that it's true that the GCSD attorney does not agree with your interpretation of the language, but even more important than that, it would be, and I used this phrase before, but let me use it again, wildly irresponsible for us to authorize work for which we do not have agreed upon funding. That's not how we're supposed to do things. So at this point, do we have a second on the motion to, okay. And do we have further discussion on the motion to table item D? All right, we have a roll call, please.
Director Slater Carter,
Yes.
Director Penrose,
Yes.
Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Decker,
Aye.
Director Radek,
Aye.
and I.
Aye. All right, moving on. Thank you. General Manager's report.
Staff is here to answer any questions. The detailed report will be in the second meeting of the month.
Any director's reports? Topics for future board consideration? All right, we'll adjourn to closed session.
Yes.
No need for a closed session, at least unless Kitchen has one.